What's up, guys? I'm BTC. We just got some more in-depth information about Ramattra's abilities, as well as Blizzard revealing what his ultimate is going to be. Now, all of this information comes from the Blizzard team working in Korea. They had some sort of press conference where they gave out a whole bunch of information about Overwatch 2, so that has been translated from Korean to English. Unfortunately, it's not perfect. And especially with the names of the abilities, it looks like some of them might be direct translations, which doesn't always work. So the names of the abilities are subject to change, but the bulk of all of the translation seems to be good enough to where we can understand what needs to be understood and all that. So let's get into it. The first thing is, in the Omnic form, you have the left click, which is going to be his primary attack, and this is going to launch a projectile. We already knew that. His right click is going to be a barrier, which we also already knew, but what type of barrier is the new information? So it looks like it's going to be functioning a little bit like what Orisa had, because when Ramattra creates that barrier in his Omnic form, it says that you create a barrier at the target location. Now, it doesn't say that you launch the barrier like Orisa did, and it doesn't say that the barrier needs to kind of move out like Sigma has. Instead, it looks like you just kind of pick a spot, probably on the ground. You pick a spot on the ground, and then you right-click, and it generates a barrier there. Or at least that's kind of what it sounds like through the translation. We'll have to actually see it in-game if there's a difference, but it does say specifically that it will create a barrier at the target location. So that's new info. Next, into his second ability, which is going to be the Vortex of Gluttony. Now, we've seen images of this. It looks like kind of the cyclone of energy. It says that you will launch a bunch of kind of nanospheres, and it will explode on contact with the ground, creating a damaging force field. Enemies within the force field will be pulled to the ground. Now, I have heard that maybe this will prevent you from jumping as well, but it's definitely going to take characters like Pharah and Echo, and it's going to pull them down to the ground. So it does have a kind of anti-air ability to it. And then also movement speed of enemies inside the field is going to be slowed. So it's going to probably deal a little bit of damage, it's going to pull people to the ground, and it's mostly going to be used as an AoE slow. It should also be noted that this ability works in both Omnic and Nemesis form, and it appears to be the exact same for both. And speaking of Nemesis form, that's what's next. Unfortunately, this is where we get a little bit of the breakdown in the translation, because it says you can transform into the Nemesis for about 8 seconds, but Blizzard didn't reveal how long you can stay in the form. And those two sentences contradict each other. So why would it say they don't know how long they can stay in the form when the previous sentence said that you can hold it for about 8 seconds? So I think what the translation error here is that when you use the Nemesis form, it gets put on an 8-second cooldown, and then you can hold it for as long as you want, kind of like what Bastion used to be. It could also be an 8-second duration, but judging by the way that this is worded, it kind of seems like they're more talking about a cooldown than a duration. Now, we do have an image for Ramattra in his Nemesis form that shows the HUD. Unfortunately, it doesn't clear anything up, it just makes things more confusing. You can see that the Nemesis form is active because the icon is orange, but he also has the defensive, the poor man's power block thing also is active, and that's orange as well. So then you have a timer in the center of the screen. You can see that the HUD is kind of counting down, but we don't know which ability that is. Is that the power block thing that's counting down? Is that the duration on it? Or is it the duration of the Nemesis? So, honestly, I don't know. I mean, the way it's worded, it says that, yes, it's supposed to last for 8 seconds, but then the other sentence says that we don't know how long it lasts, Blizzard didn't tell us, so they're contradicting each other, which makes me think that it's a cooldown, but then when you look at the screenshot, it's like, who knows? I don't know. Either the ability lasts for 8 seconds or it lasts forever. I guess we'll have to wait a little bit longer to find out. Regardless, then he has his ability. So the left click is going to get changed. Instead of the staff that launches the projectiles, you now have the fist. So he's going to start punching stuff, and every single time you punch something, it generates a large wave of energy in front of him, and it will also, it says that it penetrates enemies. So it looks like it might be kind of like a fire strike type thing, where it's going to be a short distance and it's only going to, have a minimal amount of effectiveness. But if there's a bunch of enemies that are grouped up, you'll be able to hit all of them as the energy travels through them. Next up is the right click. The barrier goes away. Instead, you basically get Doomfist power block. And I'm not even kidding here. It says, right click reduces movement speed, but greatly reduces damage from the front, which is exactly what power block does. Although it doesn't seem to have any extra bonus, right? Like, at least with Doomfist, if you absorb a certain amount, then you get like some extra benefits to your rocket punch and stuff. But this looks just like a worse version of of power block from Doomfist. So right click reduces movement speed. Check. Okay, same thing. Reduces damage from the front. Okay. But then there's no bonuses to it. So it's a worse version of the power block, which itself is not even a good ability. So I don't know about that one. And then we have his ultimate, which is called Destruction. When activated, it will automatically switch Ramattra into Nemesis form, and it will create an energy zone around him. Enemies within the energy zone will take continuous damage, and it says that the duration is maintained as long as you deal damage to enemies within the zone. So it's basically a damage version of Zenyatta's ultimate, right? So rather than healing your team, you're going to deal damage to everybody in the area, and it looks like you can just have it last as much as you want. Like, if you're running after the enemies and you're chasing them down, it looks like it will constantly refresh itself and just keep staying on until you run out of enemies or until they're too far away. There's probably going to be some kind of a grace period. I doubt that it's going to deactivate instantly. It's probably going to be kind of like what Zenyatta has with his orbs, where if they break line of sight, you have like 2 seconds or something or whatever, and then the orb comes back to you. This is probably going to be the same. It's probably not going to instantly shut off when an enemy moves away. There's likely going to be a slight duration, like a grace period. But that's what his ultimate is going to be. It's basically the damaging version of what Zenyatta does. Little bit of a side note, in my other video for Ramattra, I pointed out how his backstory is very similar to a hero concept that I made a couple years ago named Ares. However, now that we just learned what Ramattra's ultimate is, it happens to be very similar to another hero concept I made, except in this case, it's an unreleased hero concept. The character is named Mallow. I actually have like 4 or 5 hero concepts that I've made. I just haven't actually gotten around to doing the videos for them. And Mallow is one of them. He works for Los Mortos. He's one of the people in charge down there. Anyways, his ultimate is called Consume, and just like Ramattra, it's a player-based AoE. So it's basically, a damage over time kind of thing, and it works kind of similar to this. Now, I don't know if I'm going to end up changing it for Mallow when I do release the actual hero concept. I kind of don't want to, but I know that if I don't, I'm going to have people saying, you just copied Ramattra, even though I made this hero concept like 2 years ago. But, and this is the same thing. I have another one that uses an attack that's similar to what the new version of Orisa has. And again, same thing. I did that like 2 years before the change to Orisa, but obviously I just took too long. So I guess you snooze, you lose kind of thing. But anyways, just thought that was kind of funny that it's pretty much the same. So there you go, guys. Ramattra, those are his abilities and what his ultimate is going to be. What do you think about it? Let me know down below.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.